What if 2026 isn't the future at all, but something The Simpsons already showed us years ago? For decades, this cartoon has left people stunned with predictions that feel less like jokes and more like warnings. Some turned out to be coincidences, but others lined up with reality in ways that are impossible to ignore. And if that track record means anything, then 2026 might already be written in Springfield. In 2007, The Simpsons aired an episode called Little Big Girl, where Springfield is engulfed in a massive wildfire. Entire neighborhoods consumed, firefighters overwhelmed, and families scrambling to survive. It looked like pure disaster movie chaos. But here's the chilling part. The scenes feel disturbingly close to what's been happening in real life. California has been plagued with wildfires year after year, and the destruction is only growing worse.
Sir, how does it feel knowing that no one is coming to save you?
Well, not as bad as knowing that somewhere gays are marrying each other.
Clips of the episode compared side by side with real footage spread across TikTok, and people were shocked at just how accurate it looked. Now here's the bigger question. If The Simpsons already captured the terrifying reality of fires nearly 20 years ago, what happens in 2026 when climate extremes are expected to hit new levels? Scientists warn of hotter summers, longer droughts, and even more uncontrollable blazes. Maybe Springfield wasn't just a cartoon city burning down. It was a preview of our own future. But fire wasn't the only thing they saw coming. In one episode, Homer and Marge are seen strapped into VR headsets, feeding each other virtual fudge through tubes. At the time, it looked like the most absurd futuristic gag you could imagine. Digital dessert? Who would ever want that? Fast forward, and it's no longer just a joke. Real restaurants are experimenting with VR dining experiences, where your senses are hijacked to make you feel like you're eating on the ocean floor, floating in space, or walking through vineyards in Italy. The food is real, but the world around you is completely artificial. And here's the strange part. Some scientists believe this might not just be entertainment. By 2026, with food shortages and climate concerns growing, VR dining could become a way to trick our brains into satisfaction while cutting back on real ingredients. Imagine tasting steak without ever touching meat, or sipping wine that's nothing more than flavored water mixed with digital illusion. When The Simpsons showed us virtual fudge, it seemed like comedy. But what if it was actually a glimpse into the future of how humanity eats? And food isn't the only place where the show predicted something bizarre. Back in 1992, The Simpsons aired an episode where Homer's half-brother invents a bizarre device, a baby translator. It took a newborn's cries and turned them into actual words. At the time, it was just another ridiculous gag. But now, reality is catching up. Companies are already testing AI-powered apps that claim to analyze a baby's cries, telling parents whether the child is hungry, tired, or even in pain. The technology uses machine learning to detect sound patterns, exactly like Herb's invention in the show. Here's the part that feels straight out of science fiction. By 2026, experts believe AI parenting tools could become so advanced that they understand infants better than most humans. Imagine a smart device telling you your baby is sad, bored, or craving comfort before you even notice. Helpful? Maybe. Creepy? Definitely. Because if machines can replace instinct at the earliest stage of life, what happens next? And that's not the only time The Simpsons blurred the line between comedy and real science. Sometimes they've stumbled into world-changing discoveries. In 1998, Homer Simpson tried his hand at becoming an inventor. On a chalkboard, he scribbled down what looked like a random mix of numbers and symbols. It was just another joke, until physicists noticed something shocking. 14 years later, scientists at CERN finally confirmed the existence of the Higgs boson, also known as the God particle, the tiny piece of the puzzle that gives everything in the universe its mass. And here's the creepy part. Homer's doodled equation was eerily close to the actual value scientists discovered. This wasn't luck. Many Simpsons writers have strong backgrounds in math and science, and they loved hiding real equations in the show. But still, what are the odds that a throwaway joke would end up brushing against one of the biggest scientific breakthroughs of modern history? And it makes you wonder, if Homer nearly predicted the Higgs boson, what else from Springfield's chalkboard could end up becoming real in 2026? Because science isn't the only thing they've eerily foreshadowed. They've also managed to script the outcomes of sports history. In 2010, The Simpsons aired an episode where Homer and Marge somehow make it to the Winter Olympics as part of a mixed curling team. Against all odds, Team USA faces Sweden in the gold medal match and wins. At the time, it felt like one of those ridiculous Simpsons fantasies. There's no way it could ever happen, right? Fast forward to 2018, the U.S. men's curling team led by John Schuster pulls off the impossible, their first ever Olympic gold medal. And who did they beat in the final? Sweden. Exactly like the show. Even the episode's writer admitted they never thought it would line up with reality. But it did, down to the details. A goofy animated storyline became an exact reflection of Olympic history. And with another Winter Olympics coming soon, the question practically asks itself, did The Simpsons already write the script for what happens next? Because as strange as predicting a sports upset is, it gets much darker when their episodes seem to echo real-world tragedies. In 2006, The Simpsons aired an episode where Homer goes on an underwater adventure inside a tiny submersible. The trip quickly goes wrong, his oxygen runs out, and he loses consciousness deep below the surface. It was meant as comedy, but in 2023, the real world watched a nightmare unfold. The Titan submersible, carrying 5 passengers on a dive to the Titanic wreck, lost contact and suffered a catastrophic implosion. The parallels were chilling. Small subs, oxygen running out, lives hanging by a thread. Fans pointed to the old Simpsons episode and couldn't believe the similarities. Was it just coincidence or something stranger? Even one of the show's producers admitted he had taken dives on the Titan before and experienced communication failures himself. And it raises an eerie question. As technology pushes us deeper into the oceans, what happens in 2026 if we haven't learned the lesson? Because if The Simpsons can eerily mirror real disasters at sea, what's stopping their jokes from spilling into pop culture itself? In 2020, The Simpsons aired an episode where Professor Frink launched his own cryptocurrency. Just a gag about digital money, right? But then in 2021, another episode flashed a stock ticker with Bitcoin's value listed as infinity. It was satire, but the message was clear. Crypto was unstoppable. And in real life, cryptocurrency has exploded. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and even meme coins have reshaped the financial world. But here's the twist. Banks and governments are now racing to launch their own digital currencies. Some experts believe cash could disappear within the next decade. So what if The Simpsons wasn't exaggerating? What if 2026 is the year money as we know it begins to vanish? Imagine a world where physical bills don't exist, where every transaction is digital, traceable, and controlled. It sounded like comedy when Springfield joked about Bitcoin. But by 2026, it might not be funny at all. And while some predictions feel dangerously close to reality, others are stranger because sometimes the internet creates Simpsons predictions that never existed. Not every so-called Simpsons prediction is real. After Queen Elizabeth II's passed in 2022, the internet blew up with claims that The Simpsons had shown her lying in a coffin with the exact date of her death. People shared screenshots, videos, and memes, swearing the show had nailed it again. But here's the truth. That episode never existed. The prediction was nothing more than Photoshop and clever editing. The Simpsons never showed her death at all. And this is where things get even stranger because as AI keeps advancing, fake Simpsons clips are only getting more convincing. By 2026, we may not be dealing with old memes and Photoshops anymore, but full-blown AI-generated episodes predicting events that never actually aired. And if people already believe the fake ones now, what happens when the fakes look real? Maybe the biggest Simpsons prediction for 2026 isn't about science, disasters, or technology. It's that we won't even be able to tell what's real anymore. So what do we make of all this? From wildfires to VR food, baby translators to digital money, and even concerts that seemed impossible, The Simpsons has a track record that feels less like coincidence and more like a roadmap. Some predictions turned out to be satire. Others lined up with reality in ways no one can explain. And with 2026 right around the corner, maybe the strangest part is this. The future might not surprise us at all because Springfield already lived it.